As we do each week, we're going to start with who's hot, and I have the first pick. Very excited, Troy, about this one.
Yes.
Very happy. Some may have never thought it would happen in 2023-24, but in who's hot, we're going to go with Alexander Ovechkin, as I affectionately like to call him.
Yep.
Feels good, Troy. Been a rough start for our boy Ovi for 2023-24. That being said, he might be turning the corner a bit and maybe beating back Father Time a little bit because he's heating up. In his last 5 games played, Ovi has 4 goals, 3 assists for 7 points, bringing his season totals to 12 goals, 23 assists for 35 points in 47 games played. Ovi has half of his goals this year, Troy, in the past 15 games.
How many empty netters?
Well, we'll get there.
Okay. Oh, you
give it a minute. Give it a minute. He now sits at 834 career goals, putting him at 61 goals shy of owning Gretzky's all-time goals record. In his last game, Troy, here we go. 3-0 victory over the Boston Bruins on Saturday afternoon. He had an assist and an Ovi special, an empty netter. Now, why do we have to emphasize this? Because this is awesome when he scores empty net goals. And then also, it was his 57th empty net goal in his career, making him the NHL's all-time leader in empty net goals.
All right.
Some may argue this is the more important goals record. Hobby value should be skyrocketing. So he passed Wayne Gretzky, who was the previous all-time empty net goals record leader with 56. And then now behind those two, you have Marian Hossa, who had 40. And then Brad Marchand is 4th all-time with 34.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, very
interesting. It's pretty curious to me that Gretzky and Ovi are literally at the same, or we're almost right around each other for empty netters. So, and then I shouldn't rip on Ovi anymore. Maybe I should be ripping on Gretzky for all his empty netters.
Can't do that. That's illegal. You'd be arrested. Okay, getting back to Gretzky's goals record, though. As of a week or two ago, Troy, you were on the record.
Yes.
With your opinion that Ovechkin would not ultimately break Gretzky's record. Well, now he's heating up a bit, and I got to know, has anything changed in your mind? Are you sticking to?
I'm going to stick to it, but it's going to be hard. I hope he does it. Personally, I hope he does it, but I don't think so.
So I think if he can get to this point, so if he scores another, 10, 12 goals, and he has less than 50 to go at the end of this year, he'll play 2 more years and score 25 goals a year, I think, to get it.
Yeah. Even 3 more years if he really struggled to try to get it.
I mean, if you count at 10 empty netters a year, right? So now he only needs to really score 30 goals.
I'm always curious, like, is Ovi the guy? Is this important to him? Because sometimes I feel like it's got to be important, right? I mean, a Russian player to have that's got to be like a huge pride thing.
There was an article that was behind a paywall. It was the Washington Post. And I know to subscribe to that.
Oh, you should.
I really wanted to read.
You should have sent me it. I can get you around the paywall.
Really?
Oh yeah.
You know secrets?
Oh yeah. Half the time it's just going into the JavaScript of the site, and you can get it to show.
Right, his fancy words. Well, anyways, the headline of the article was something to the effect of like, how much should the Capitals be prioritizing the goals record versus actually trying to win hockey games? It's interesting that that's entering into the equation.
Yeah, my first response was 0%, but then you think about it, it's like, well, it's probably good for the team. I don't know where they're at in the playoff run. I'm assuming they're not doing that great.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, Alexander Ovechkin is a 2005-06 Young Guns. PSA 10 has a pop of 1,198. 38% gem rate, less sold for $3,453 US on February 8th. Down 8% in the past 2 weeks, yet up about 5% in the past month. So Alexander Ovechkin was on the struggle bus at one point, but has turned it around and starts this week's Who's Hot. You got the next one.
I like it. All right, Josh. Here is a guy we haven't talked about in a bit, and it surprised me when I was looking up stats and stuff, and I was like, oh, we haven't really mentioned him in a while. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the picture of him. It's everyone's favorite player who, now that he was named captain of the Canadiens, better learn French, or some members of Quebec's political leaders will be mad at him. So let's get an update, Josh. I did some research on Suzuki's French speaking. and how
Really?
it's coming along.
So is he in Who's Hot not because of hockey, but because of words that he's learned in French?
It's like a dual thing. I think we can include both things: hockey playing and his learning of French. So here we go.
Wait, I just got one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I don't know if you remember this, but I had submitted an application on our behalf to be his French tutors, and it's funny we never heard back.
I wonder why. They're like, holy cow, these guys can't even speak English, let alone French.
Can you imagine if we were his French tutors and he goes to give his first interview in French?
It always reminds me of, and I can't remember what the actual thing was, but they had a sign interpreter on some big interview, and the sign interpreter like didn't know sign language, so they were just doing gibberish, and it was like, what is going on? And people were just ripping on it. It was like a big thing where you thought they would have someone that knew what they were doing, and that's kind of what we would be if we were trying to teach good old Nick Suzuki about French. But
Pretty much.
Here we go, Josh. From the information I could find, it looks like Suzuki is learning French in bits and pieces. He speaks it with players and various staff members to work on it. He's also taking part in a voluntary French speaking program that the Canadians have reinstated to help any player that wants to learn French do so. Josh, he's even done TV ads in French. So I think the French speaking is coming along very nicely. And I know everyone wanted to know, and I'm glad I took 2 minutes to explain it to everyone. And hopefully you haven't turned us off. All right, on to the hockey. Over his past 6 games, Suzuki has been on a nice little hot streak. Over those 6 games, he has 4 goals, 6 assists for 10 points, Josh. In fact, he has scored at least 1 point in those 6 games. I'll say that's pretty good. Definitely deserves a spot on Who's Hot. On the season, Suzuki has 16 goals, 31 assists for 47 points in 51 games. Puts him on pace for 75 points, which would be a career high. In fact, Josh, and I'm kind of hinting of what's coming next. The whole Canadians' first line is on fire right now. In those last 6 games, Suzuki's line mate, Cole Caulfield, has 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. And our boy, the Hafkovsky, is no longer doing Hafkovskys. He has 4 goals, 2 assists for 6 points in those last 6 games. So, Josh, we could have put the whole line on the hot list, and we almost do. Hint, hint. Also, I think it's really nice to see. I'm going to kind of divert. I like seeing Slavkovsky have a nice little run, but Suzuki's 10 points in those 6 games puts him on the coveted hot list. I was thinking about putting Slavkovsky on, but I decided against it. All right, Josh. And while they're still hot, or the first line is hot, the Canadians still struggle to put up wins. In their last 6 games, the Canadians have a record of 2 wins, 3 losses, 1 overtime loss. So the Canadians right now are a top-heavy team, and they probably need some more production from their other lines to help out this first line from carrying the load. But Josh, our favorite French learning hockey player, Nick Suzuki, is on the list. His Young Guns, Josh, right here, 2019. Young Guns, PSA 10, pop is $9.98 with a gem rate of 43%. Last sale of this card was on February 9th of 2024 via My Slabs, Josh, for $220 US. In January, the card was going around for $190 US. So a nice little bump there with the last sale.
Nick Suzuki, very deservedly on the Who's Hot list. Before we get into our last guy, though, this is the part where, a part of our journey, I guess, where we have to pull back the curtain a little bit, Troy, and let people know actually how we make the show. So we have like a public notes document that we can add to, and we can see what each other's kind of writing for their show ideas. And it's super obvious that neither of us pay attention to what the other person is doing. Because, and I'm going to read it because to stay true to the bit, I'm going to go exactly as I wrote it to prove that we don't, like I said, pay attention to the other person. And we obviously read the same articles because it's almost like you copy and pasted half of my next Who's Hot into. So if anyone that was paying attention to Nick Suzuki, you'll find this pretty funny. Our last player Who's Hot, Troy, is going to be Cole Caulfield. So I number one, I'll say I think I'm going with like the redemption tour this week on Who's Hot. I picked Ovi, who had a real slow start, and then Caulfield, who had another slow start again.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to give a little more insight into your what you just said about us not reading each other's things. So obviously I did. I didn't see it, but I put a note in bold by Nick Suzuki. I say, sorry, I didn't see you had Caulfield until I freaking wrote this thing. So I'm like, then I saw it and I was like, after I wrote the whole segment, because I must have scanned it and saw the name and just didn't think anything of it. Like, because I want to make sure I'm not writing the same person, but I totally botched this one. So this one's on me.
Oh, it's fine. It's funny. I think it's funny because, like I said, it's very obvious we research the same materials, and you're going to find out in a quick second. One thing I do want to mention, though, about when it would pertain to Suzuki as well as Caulfield, the Canadians do play today, Sunday, the day we're recording. So all the data that we used was as through Saturday. Okay, so that being said, now looking at Cole Caulfield, in his last 10 games, the 23-year-old Montreal Star has 6 goals, 7 assists for 13 points. Now, again, as of Saturday, we don't know today, he's also in the midst of a career-high 11-game point streak. As I said, much like Gobi, the first half of 2023-24 has been somewhat of a disappointment for Cole Caulfield. Through 51 games played, he's scored 17 goals, 24 assists for 41 points. That brings his 82-game pace up to 27 goals, 66 points. If you remember last year, he had 26 goals. That'd be like a 1-goal improvement. But that was on only 46 games before getting hurt. Canadians are a young team, have been somewhat stuck in neutral this season. They're pretty much even with a 21, 22-8 record. They're 4-4-2 in their last 10 games played. But they are pacing Troy to improve from their 31, 45, and 6 record last year. Okay. Again, I'm just going to read what I wrote. Their top line
you give different
Suzuki,
time. You give different time frames though, so it works out.
Okay. Their top line of Suzuki, Slavkovsky, and Caulfield has been excelling as of late. Troy, did you know that, Troy?
I did.
No, pay attention. This is going to be news. This is going to be informative for you. Since January 1st, Suzuki has 15 points. Caulfield has 15 points, and
there we go.
Our guy Slavkovsky has 10 in 15 games played. Given what we talked about on our last show with the on ice and hobby struggles of the 2022-23 rookie class, I think it would be a really good thing for the hobby for Caulfield to find his scoring touch again. So hopefully that's the case. He has such a solid goal scoring pedigree, Troy. I haven't been too worried this year. If you look back at like his career going back to youth hockey, the kid scored 1 million goals.
Yeah,
everywhere he's played. So yeah, but I think. Just one last thing about the importance, I think, of him doing well for the hobby, not only because of the market, but as we're in this sort of Bedard craze with the 2023-24 rookie classes, to have other strong rookies from recent years to balance that out a little bit, I think will make the hobby a lot more healthy. Caulfield is a 2021-22 Young Guns, and his PSA 10 popped 2,997, has a 34% gem rate. Last sold for $168 on February 10th. Pretty much flat over the past week. Now, you are a very well-known and esteemed Cole Caulfield hockey cards photo critic.
They're always terrible. They're always terrible. I have never seen a good one of him. It's either he's hunchback, he's got a weird face. He has weird face. I don't know why Upper Deck does him dirty like that. Maybe it's just how he takes pictures, but if it's not the face, it's always the hunched over kind of hunchback thing going on.
Maybe the Upper Deck should hire the Loud Collector Phil to do like a Muppet face like you did for us.
There you go.